Hey everyone, tonight I'm going to tell you a true crime story in a very gentle way. A story of a family who drove up a mountain and simply vanished. Imagine the crisp autumn air of Oklahoma, the endless sea of trees, and a single, lonely truck left on a dirt road. It's a quiet mystery, a whispered puzzle that still hangs in the air today. This story has layers of strangeness that will slowly, gently peel back together. It involves a bag of cash, bizarre spiritual beliefs, and a final haunting photograph. So before you get too comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Your support helps this small, quiet corner of the internet grow. I'd love to know where you're listening from tonight and what time it is in your part of the world. It's a nice feeling knowing we're all connected in this quiet, dark space. Now, dim the lights, turn on a fan for some gentle white noise, and let's begin tonight's journey together. You're walking through the Sans Bois Mountains in Oklahoma. The name is French, a little historical remnant from explorers who passed through centuries ago, and it means without woods. It's a funny, ironic name because as you look around, you are surrounded by them. Towering oaks and pines create a thick canopy, and the ground beneath your feet is a soft carpet of fallen leaves. It's October of 2009, and the air has that perfect autumn chill, the kind that makes you pull your jacket just a little tighter. You're not here for any particular reason. Maybe you're a hunter or just someone seeking solitude, enjoying the quiet crunch, crunch, crunch of your boots on the path. Up ahead, through the dense foliage, you see something that doesn't belong. A glint of white metal. As you get closer, you see it's a truck, a white pickup, parked awkwardly on the side of this remote, barely there dirt road. It looks out of place and abandoned. Your first thought is that maybe it broke down. You approach it cautiously. You cup your hands and peer through the driver's side window. The inside is normal, a bit messy, but normal. There's a jacket on the seat, a map, maybe an empty soda bottle. You walk around to the other side, and that's when you see her. Curled up on the passenger seat, shivering and weak, is a dog. She's emaciated, her ribs showing through her coat, but she's alive. She looks up at you with wide, desperate eyes. The truck is locked. There's no sign of anyone. No footprints, no struggle, just a silent truck and a starving dog. You know immediately that something is wrong. You make a note of the location and head back to civilization, back to a place with cell service, to make the call. You've just discovered the first piece of the Jamison family puzzle. The authorities arrive. They manage to get the doors open and rescue the dog, whose name, they'll soon learn, is Maisie. Her survival is a small miracle, but it's what else they find inside the truck that deepens the mystery. They find Sherilyn Jamison's purse. Inside is her wallet, with ID and credit cards. They find Bobby Jamison's wallet too. They find both of their cell phones, a GPS, everything you'd expect a family to have with them. And then they find something you wouldn't expect. Tucked away under the driver's seat is a bank bag, and inside that bag is $32,000 in cash. Now let's be honest. If you found an abandoned truck with $32,000 in it, calling the police might not be your first instinct. Your first instinct might be to start planning a very relaxing, unscheduled vacation to somewhere without extradition treaties. But thankfully for the investigation, the hunters who found the truck were better people than that. This cache immediately sends up a red flag. This isn't a simple case of a family getting lost on a hike. This feels like something else. A drug deal gone wrong? A ransom payment? The theories begin to swirl like the autumn leaves outside. Investigators trace the truck to Bobby and Sherilyn Jamison, who live in the nearby town of Eufaula with their 6-year-old daughter, Madison. They had been reported missing a few days prior. The family had been looking at a 40-acre plot of land to buy, right here in these mountains. They wanted to get away, to live a simpler life in a storage container they planned to convert into a home. It was their dream. So you travel with the investigators to their house in Eufaula. The picture gets even stranger. The house is locked, just like the truck. Inside, it's eerily quiet. It's clear they intended to come back. Their coats are gone, but everything else is there. Dishes in the sink, food in the pantry. Their other dog is inside, alive and well, unfed but unharmed. But the atmosphere in the house is heavy. You can feel a palpable sense of paranoia. On the side of that storage container they plan to live in, the one in their backyard, someone has spray painted strange, unsettling messages. One of them reads, "Witches don't like it when their cats are killed." Investigators also find what the family's pastor would later call Sherilyn's Satanic Bible. Now, this is a detail that has been sensationalized over the years. Academic debate among those who study new religious movements would suggest it was likely not a Bible in the traditional sense, but probably a book on Wicca or some other form of modern witchcraft, less about dark rituals and more about herbal remedies and communing with nature. Still, it points to a belief system outside the mainstream. This is where the story splits into two competing narratives. On one hand, you have the evidence of an external threat, the cache, the remote location, the disappearance itself. On the other hand, you have evidence of an internal struggle. Friends and family describe Bobby and Sherilyn as becoming increasingly withdrawn and paranoid in the months leading up to their disappearance. They had lost a significant amount of weight. They believed their house was haunted. Sherilyn, in particular, was convinced of it. She told her best friend that spirits lived on the roof. She had names for them. She even claimed that her daughter, Madison, would talk to one of them, a little girl named Emily. This is a classic, if unsettling, detail often found in fringe paranormal accounts, the idea of spirits, often of children, attached to a specific place. It's the kind of thing that makes for a great spooky story, but for the Jamisons, it was apparently their reality. And then there's the letter, a hateful 11-page letter from Sherilyn to Bobby, found in the truck. It's filled with anger and resentment. She calls him a hermit, criticizes his every move, and speaks of wanting a divorce. It reads like the final bitter words of a marriage that has completely crumbled. But here's the odd part. Their family and friends said they seemed happy together. They were a unit. So was this letter a true reflection of their feelings? Or was it a symptom of something else? A moment of extreme stress? Or, as some psychologists have theorized in similar cases, a manifestation of a shared delusion, a folie à deux, where two people feed each other's paranoia until it spirals out of control. You stand in their silent house, looking at the life they left behind. You see the world through the investigator's eyes. Every object is a potential clue. Every story from a friend is a potential motive. Was this family running from something? Or were they running towards a shared fantasy, a dream of a new life that went terribly, inexplicably wrong in these ancient wooded hills? The cash in the truck suggests a real world danger, but the witch Bible and the stories of ghosts suggest a danger that was born in their own minds. The truth, you suspect, is somewhere in between, lost with them on that lonely mountain road. And you can't shake the most chilling detail of all found on Bobby's phone, a single photograph of 6-year-old Madison. She's standing by the truck, her arms crossed, with an expression on her face that isn't a smile. It's a look of weariness, of fear, a look no child should ever have. Let's go back to that photograph on Bobby's phone. It becomes the defining image of the case in these early days. You study it, trying to decipher the story it tells. The quality is poor, as phone cameras were in 2009. The colors are washed out, but the emotion is clear. Madison, just 6 years old, isn't posing. She isn't playing. She is standing with her arms crossed tightly against her small frame, her face turned slightly away from the camera. Her expression is a mixture of defiance and fear. It's the look of a child who has been told to stand still, to be quiet, and who is deeply, deeply unhappy about it. Why would a father take this picture of his daughter? Was it an innocent, candid moment that only looks sinister in the harsh light of their disappearance? Or was it something more? A proof-of-life photo for someone they were supposed to meet. A final, desperate record of their last moments. The ambiguity of it is maddening. The police are faced with two very different, yet equally compelling theories. You can almost feel the pull between them in the incident room. On one side of the whiteboard, you have the logical, real-world explanation. This is where you bring in the hard truth about this part of Oklahoma. Latimer County and the surrounding areas are known for something other than scenic beauty. It's meth country. The same rugged, isolated terrain that appealed to the Jamisons' dream of living off-grid is the perfect cover for clandestine drug manufacturing. It's a historical fact of modern rural America. Where poverty and isolation meet, illegal enterprise often flourishes. So you have to ask the question, did the Jamisons, in their innocent search for a peaceful plot of land, stumble upon a meth lab? Did they see something they weren't supposed to see? This theory makes the $32,000 cash seem almost logical. Maybe they were trying to buy the land from some very unsavory characters who dealt only in cash. Or maybe, in their desperation, they had gotten involved themselves. Perhaps they agreed to transport the money for someone in exchange for a cut. It sounds like the plot of a TV show, but for law enforcement in this region, it's a depressingly plausible scenario. It's a bit of a wake-up call, really. The romantic idea of escaping it all and living in a shipping container in the woods loses some of its charm when you realize your new neighbors might be running a criminal enterprise that would make Walter White look like a small business owner. The police take this theory very seriously, searching records, talking to informants, trying to find any link between the Jamisons and the local drug trade. On the other side of the whiteboard, you have the theory that is far stranger, the one fueled by the family's own words and actions. The cult theory. This is where you lean into the weirdness. You have Sherilyn's pastor who is adamant. He tells investigators that the family was involved in some kind of spiritual warfare. He says Sherilyn showed him strange messages, claimed a cult was after her, and that her name was on a hit list. You have the Satanic Bible, the spray painted warnings about killing witches' cats, and their profound paranoia about spirits in their home. Could they have gotten entangled with a small, isolated group in the mountains? It's not unheard of. The American wilderness has long been a refuge for fringe religious groups and communes seeking to separate themselves from mainstream society. Perhaps the Jamisons' interest in buying land nearby was seen as an intrusion. Perhaps their own spiritual beliefs clashed with another group's. While seasoned detectives might roll their eyes at the mention of cults and curses, they can't ignore it. It was part of the family's reality, so it has to be part of the investigation. It's often easier for us, as onlookers, to believe in a shadowy, organized evil like a cult than it is to confront the messier, more chaotic possibility of severe, untreated mental illness. Now, to make things even more complicated, you have the witnesses. And this is where the academic debate about the reliability of memory comes into play. It's a known phenomenon in criminology that once a story gets media attention, people's memories can become creative. Someone comes forward, a deer hunter. He says he saw the Jamisons' truck on the side of the road, but he also saw them. He claims he saw Bobby and Sherilyn walking in a trance-like state, their faces blank, their movements robotic. He said they didn't acknowledge him, just stared straight ahead. It's a terrifying image. But then another witness, a man who lived nearby, said he saw the family pull over. He exchanged a pleasant greeting with them. He said they seemed perfectly normal, just a family out enjoying the day. Who do you believe? Did one witness see them before something happened, and the other saw them after? Or is one of them mistaken? Or are both of their memories colored by the strange story they now know they were a part of? Psychologists could tell you that memory is not a video recording. It's a reconstruction influenced by emotion, suggestion, and time. The zombie-like description is certainly more compelling, but is it true? Underneath all of these external theories, you can't escape the family's internal state. You learn that years earlier, Bobby had been in a serious car accident that left him with chronic, debilitating pain. This could explain his withdrawn nature and perhaps even a reason for self-medicating, though there's no hard evidence of it. It would certainly explain wanting to escape the world. Dealing with chronic pain is a full-time job, and it's a miserable one, even without the added stress of ghosts and mysterious bags of cash. You also learn that Sherilyn was still grieving the recent death of her sister. Here you have two people burdened by physical and emotional pain, trying to raise a young daughter and find a fresh start. They were a family under immense pressure long before they packed up their truck that October morning. Days of searching turn into weeks, the weeks turn into months, and then years. The largest search in Oklahoma history yields nothing. Not a scrap of clothing, not a footprint, not a single sign of where they went. The forest is vast and unforgiving. It swallows sound, it swallows light, and it seems it has swallowed a family of three. The cache, the cults, the strange sightings, they all just fade into whispers. The case goes cold, leaving only that haunting photo of Madison and the silent, empty truck as proof that the Jamisons were ever there at all. The world moves on, but the mountain waits. It holds the secret, and eventually the mountain will talk. 4 years pass. 4 cycles of seasons turn the leaves in the Sans Bois Mountains from green to gold to brown and back to green again. The mystery of the Jamison family fades from the headlines, becoming a piece of local folklore, a ghost story whispered around campfires. The official case file grows thick with dead-end leads and unsubstantiated theories, and is eventually placed in a cold case cabinet. For the family left behind, the waiting is a special kind of torture. It's a concept psychologists call ambiguous loss, a grief that has no closure, a wound that can't even begin to heal because you don't know what you're mourning. You're trapped in the agonizing space between hope and despair. Every phone call, every knock on the door could be the news that changes everything. And then, one day in November of 2013, it is. You are out in the woods again, not as a police officer this time, but as one of a small group of deer hunters. You're walking a remote hilly area, far from any established trail. It's a cold day. You're focused on the silence, on the snap of twigs under your boots. And then one of your group stops. He points. Down in a small, wooded ravine, almost hidden by brush, is something pale against the dark earth. You approach slowly. It's a bone. And next to it, partially buried in the leaf litter, is a human skull. The moment is surreal. There is no panic, just a slow, cold realization that you have stumbled across the ending to a story someone has been waiting 4 years to hear. You back away carefully, pull out a phone, and make the call. When the authorities arrive, they confirm your discovery. The area is sealed off, and a painstaking forensic excavation begins. They find not one, but 3 bodies, or rather, what's left of them. After 4 years of exposure to the harsh Oklahoma weather and the local wildlife, the remains are skeletal. This is the reality of forensic anthropology, a science far more patient and meticulous than you see on television. There are no dramatic aha moments here. It's a quiet, somber process of mapping, bagging, and tagging tiny fragments of bone and scraps of clothing, all while trying not to disturb the scene. It's less about finding a smoking gun and more about finding a single tooth that can be matched to dental records. But as the scene is mapped out, the first truly bizarre fact emerges. The location where you found the remains is just 2.7 miles away from where the Jamison's truck was discovered 4 years earlier. Think about that. Less than 3 miles. How could the largest search operation in the state's history, an operation with helicopters, trained search dogs, and hundreds of volunteers, have missed them? The terrain is rough, it's true, but it's not impassable. This detail immediately ignites a firestorm of speculation. Were the searchers simply incompetent, or were the bodies not here 4 years ago? The chilling possibility hangs in the air that the Jamisons died somewhere else, and their bodies were moved here much, much later. The remains are taken to the medical examiner's office. This is where the scientific story continues. Identifying them is the first step. They use dental records for Bobby and Sherilyn. For little Madison, they will have to rely on DNA, a sample compared against her surviving grandparents. While the family waits, they are caught in that terrible limbo again, this time for the last time. That phone call finally comes, and the news is exactly what they had both dreaded and in some ways prayed for. The uncertainty is over. The remains are confirmed to be Bobby, Sherilyn, and Madison Jamison. The second thing the investigators discover is the positioning of the bodies. They were found lying close together, side by side, face down on the hillside. This detail doesn't fit with the violent, chaotic attack. It doesn't suggest they were running from something and were gunned down. It almost looks intentional, as if they lay down together to rest and never got up. It's a deeply sad and profoundly strange image. But the most critical question, the one that everyone has been waiting 4 years to answer, is how? How did they die? The forensic anthropologists get to work, examining every inch of bone. They are looking for nicks from a knife, fractures from a blunt object, small holes that would indicate a bullet. They analyze the soil around the bodies, looking for chemical traces. And after all their careful work, after weeks of analysis, they come back with their official finding. The cause of death is undetermined. There is no trauma, no broken bones, no bullet holes, no knife marks. 4 years in the wilderness has erased any potential evidence from the soft tissue. The science, for all its power, is silent. They can tell you who it was. They can tell you where they were found. But they cannot tell you what happened. This isn't just a dead end. It's a brick wall. The discovery of the bodies, the one thing that was supposed to bring answers, has only created a deeper, more fundamental mystery. All the old theories, the drug deal, the cult, the suicide pact, the family getting lost and succumbing to the elements, are thrown back on the table. But now they're viewed through this new, frustrating lens. How could any of those scenarios result in 3 bodies lying side by side with no discernible cause of death? The mountain has given back the Jamisons, but it has kept their secret locked away. With the medical examiner's report offering no answers, you're back at square one, but the board looks different now. The questions have changed. You have to take the new, hard evidence, the location, the position of the bodies, the lack of trauma, and see how it fits with the old theories. Some of them begin to crumble, while others grow stronger and stranger. Let's first reconsider the simplest theory. They just got lost. At first glance, the discovery of the bodies seems to support this. They weren't miles and miles away. They were within walking distance of their truck, so you can picture it. They park the truck to get a feel for the land they want to buy. They leave the dog, thinking they'll only be gone a short while. They get caught up in conversation, exploring the terrain. They take a wrong turn. As the sun begins to set, a gentle confusion turns into a quiet panic. The woods can be disorienting, and it's a historical fact that even experienced outdoorsmen can get turned around. Now let's add in the science of exposure. The temperature drops. They aren't dressed for a night in the mountains. The body's response to cold, hypothermia, is insidious. It doesn't just make you shiver, it attacks your mind. Judgment becomes clouded. You become lethargic, exhausted. The desire to simply stop and rest becomes overwhelming. It's not hard to imagine Bobby, Sherilyn, and little Madison, cold and confused, huddling together for warmth, deciding to just lie down for a moment from which they never wake up. It's a tragic, simple, and scientifically plausible explanation for why they were found together with no signs of violence. It's a sad commentary on our modern dependence on technology. It's funny how a dead phone battery can, even today, be the difference between a pleasant hike and a survival situation. But this theory still has holes, big ones. Why would they wander nearly 3 miles from the truck on a casual survey? And the biggest problem remains the one from the very beginning, the cash. Why would you leave your life savings, $32,000, in a bag under the seat of your unlocked truck if you were just stepping out for a brief walk? It just doesn't track. People don't treat that kind of money so casually. So let's look at the murder theory again. A drug deal or a confrontation with a cult? The lack of trauma is a major blow to this idea. No bullets, no broken bones. It's hard to kill 3 people, including a child, without leaving a single mark on their skeletons. But people who cling to this theory have their own key piece of evidence. During the autopsy, the medical examiner noted a small, shallow, circular depression on the back of Bobby's skull. A small hole. This is your weird, fringe detail for this part of the journey. The official report concluded this hole was most likely post-mortem, the result of scavenging animals, or simply the natural process of decay over 4 years. But for many online sleuths, this hole is everything. They argue it's a bullet hole from a small caliber firearm, like a .22. Such a weapon could potentially leave a small entry wound without a large exit wound, and the bullet fragment itself could have been lost to the elements over time. To them, this hole is the smoking gun, proof that this was a quiet, execution-style murder. Of course, internet forums have a tendency to turn every anomaly into a conspiracy. It's a bit of a running joke in cold case communities that if you look hard enough, you can convince yourself a mark left by a squirrel's tooth is evidence of an international plot. Still, the hole is there. It's a real piece of data, and you can't completely ignore it. This leaves you with the third, and perhaps most unsettling theory, that there was no external enemy. The threat was internal. This is where you delve back into the family's mindset and the academic theory of a shared psychotic disorder, or folie à trois. With the evidence for an external attacker being so thin, the evidence for a shared delusion becomes much more compelling. Imagine the family's reality. It is not our reality. In their world, the house is haunted. Spirits are real and are communicating with them. A shadowy cult is actively trying to harm them. Their pastor confirmed they believed they were engaged in spiritual warfare. If you truly 100% believe that, your actions are going to seem bizarre to outsiders, but they will be perfectly logical to you. In this framework, you can see a new, chilling narrative emerge. They weren't ambushed on the mountain. They went there for a reason. Maybe they believed it was a sacred place where they would be safe. Maybe they believed they had to make a sacrifice to appease the spirits. Or maybe they believed they simply had to hide and wait, that the world had become too dangerous. In a state of shared psychosis, fueled by paranoia and fear, a parent's delusion becomes the child's reality. They follow their parents' lead, trusting them completely. It's the ultimate psychological wilderness, and the human mind is infinitely more complex and bewildering than any mountain range. So you can see them walking into the woods, not because they are lost, but because they are following a command from a voice only they can hear. They lie down together, not because they are cold or tired, but because they are waiting for a sign, for a deliverance that never comes. It's a theory that requires no murderer, no weapon, no struggle. The only villain is the human mind's own terrifying capacity to break from reality. And in many ways, that is the most frightening explanation of all. So you are left standing at a crossroads with three paths, and none of them lead to a clear destination. You have the path of tragic accident, the path of a violent crime with no evidence, and the dark, winding path of psychological collapse. None of them feel quite right. The accident theory is undone by the cash and the dog left in the truck. The murder theory is undone by the complete lack of physical evidence of a struggle or a weapon. And the psychological theory, while compelling, feels too neat, a convenient way to explain the unexplainable. Let's walk down that psychological path one last time, because it contains some of the deepest shadows. If this was a case of folie à trois, a shared delusion that led them into the woods, did it end passively, or did it end with an act? This leads you to a variation of the murder-suicide theory, but one without violence. Is it possible that one of the parents, most likely the one with the more dominant delusion, convinced the other and their child to take something? A poison that would leave no trace? It would explain the peaceful-looking scene. It would explain the lack of trauma. This is where the science of toxicology comes in, and once again, it offers no comfort. This is our final historical, or in this case, scientific, truth of the story. In a fresh case, toxicology reports are vital. They can find drugs, poisons, and other substances in blood, urine, and stomach contents. But after 4 years, all of that is gone. The soft tissues have returned to the earth. Forensic scientists can sometimes test for heavy metals or certain poisons that get absorbed into bone or hair, but the process is incredibly difficult and often inconclusive. The Jamison's toxicology report came back, as expected, completely empty. It doesn't mean they weren't poisoned. It just means it's impossible to know. It's another perfect brick wall. It's honestly a bit frustrating. In detective shows, there's always a miracle fiber or a glowing residue. In reality, sometimes the evidence just disappears. Time washes it all away. This forces you back to the possibility of an external threat. If someone did this to them, who was it? For the definitive fringe theory of the case, you have to listen to the one person with the most at stake, Sherilyn's mother, Connie Griego. For years, she has been a vocal critic of the official investigation, convinced the police ignored her warnings. She doesn't believe her daughter and her family were mentally ill. She believes they were murdered. Connie has publicly stated her belief that the family was targeted by a local religious cult with ties to white supremacist groups. She claims Sherilyn was on their hit list because she, with her own Wiccan beliefs and Native American heritage, was considered an enemy. It's a powerful, frightening accusation. Investigators did look into these claims, as they must, but they reported finding no credible links, no evidence connecting any such group to the family's disappearance. But for a grieving mother, this theory makes sense of the senseless. It provides a villain. It validates the fear her daughter expressed in her final months. And this is where you run into the final academic debate of our story: the powerful, pervasive nature of confirmation bias. Confirmation bias is the tendency for people to favor information that confirms their existing beliefs. Once a person, whether it's a detective, a family member, or an internet sleuth, settles on a pet theory, their brain subconsciously starts looking for evidence to support it, while conveniently ignoring or downplaying anything that contradicts it. Think about the Jamison case. If you believe it was a drug deal, the $32,000 is your proof, and you dismiss the spiritual elements as a sideshow. If you believe it was a cult, the Satanic Bible and the pastor's stories are your proof, and you explain away the cash. If you believe it was a shared delusion, Sherilyn's visions are your proof, and you see the external threats as imagined. Every major piece of evidence in this case can be interpreted to fit any of the primary theories. The case is a perfect storm of ambiguity, allowing everyone to build their own narrative. It's like a Rorschach test. You see what you're predisposed to see. Even the final strange detail of where they were found, lying face down, is filtered through this bias. To a murder theorist, it looks like an execution. They were ordered to lie on the ground. To a suicide or exposure theorist, it looks like a final, desperate attempt to find warmth and peace by embracing the earth. So let's strip away the high drama of cartels and cults for a moment. What if the motive was simpler and somehow more chilling? What if it was just about the land? The Jamisons were outsiders, moving into a very closed, very isolated community. Maybe someone simply didn't want them there. Not a big organization, just a person or a small group of people who valued their privacy above all else. A neighborly dispute in a place with no neighbors. It sounds almost ridiculous, but territorialism in isolated rural areas can be an incredibly powerful motive. In this scenario, maybe the confrontation wasn't about money or religion. Maybe it was just a quiet, menacing warning that went too far. A command to get off my mountain that ended with 3 people being forced to march into the wilderness until they could go no further. This is the maddening genius of this case. Every theory you explore eventually leads you back to the same place, a question mark. The evidence is a perfect circle, leading you nowhere. You have a family, a truck, a bag of cash, and a haunting photograph. Years later, you have 3 skeletons on a hill less than 3 miles away. And that's it. There is no confession, no witness, no weapon. There is only the silence of the Sans-Bois Mountains and the endless speculation that whispers through the trees. Let go of the questions now. Let the theories dissolve like mist in the morning sun. The story is told. The mystery remains, but it is not yours to solve tonight. Feel the weight of it lifting from your shoulders. Picture the Sans-Bois Mountains, not as a place of fear, but as a place of immense, quiet, natural beauty. The wind moves through the tops of the tall oak trees, and it sounds like a gentle, shushing whisper. It's the sound of the world breathing. The moon is out, casting a soft, silvery light on the forest floor, making everything peaceful and calm and still. There are no questions here. There is no fear. There is only the deep, slow rhythm of the night. Feel your own breathing begin to match that rhythm. A slow, easy breath in and a long, soft breath out. You are safe, you are comfortable, and you are ready for rest. The endless puzzle of the Jamisons will be there tomorrow, but for tonight you can release it. You can let the quiet of the mountains become your own quiet. Let the darkness be a soft, warm blanket, pulling you down into a deep and peaceful sleep. Maybe someday we'll know the truth, but for now, sleep well.